does it impact your retirement planning if there is an age gap between you and your spouse? I want to talk today about 5 things that you should think about. Number 1 is Social Security benefits. When should you file for Social Security if there is an age gap between you and your spouse? And what I want you to focus on first is, what is that biggest lifetime benefit? But then secondarily, what will the survivor's benefit be when the first person passes away? Because you want to know what that amount is going to be. How much will that survivor still have coming in from Social Security? And where is the rest of the income going to come from? When the first person passes away, the Social Security benefit to the survivor is going to basically be the larger of the 2 amounts. Sometimes they'll pay it out as a partial of one and a partial of the other, but it's the larger of the 2 amounts that continues on. You don't continue both full benefits after the first person has passed away. And that is sometimes a surprise to some people. So you want to know what that survivor benefit is going to be. The next thing to think about is, if there's an age gap, when are the 2 of you going to retire? The younger person might really be enjoying their career and moving forward and like their job when the older person is already retired or moving into retirement. And I want to encourage you to think about finding a good balance, whatever that is for you, so that while that older person is still healthy and active, you can do some things together. You can travel, you can take some big trips, you can do other activities together that require being active and being able to go and do. Because if the younger person waits and is very engrossed in their work up until the point in time that they retire, by that time, the older person may not have the desire or ability to do as much or go as much. So you've got to find a really good balance between those 2 for your situation. The third thing I want you to think about is, which assets are you going to use to cover your lifestyle expenses? You'll be spending down from various assets. And part of that is thinking through what you want those assets to do when you're no longer here. But secondarily, also considering the tax impacts that your spouse would have when they continue on, if the assets are going to be left for your spouse to use for their living expenses. Here in Texas, because we are a community property state, some assets will get a step up in basis, and other assets do not, because they are retirement assets and they don't get a step up in basis no matter what. So thinking through the tax situation, you want to try to leave the best tax situation for the surviving spouse while also honoring all of the other goals that you have for your money and where you want your money to go ultimately. Because the surviving spouse is going to be faced with the widow's tax, which is my 4th point here. The widow's tax is what we call just the fact that when you're filing, married and you're filing a joint tax return, you get a lot of more income flowing through that tax return at the lower bracket. And when the first person passes away, that survivor is then filing as a single filer. And a lot of that income gets pushed up into a higher bracket. And that's what we call the widow's tax, because it's the same amount of income, but it's a lot higher tax. And I've done some videos on this to really run through the numbers. So you can go back and look in the tax section and see some of those videos. The last point that I want to make is thinking about your care late in life, long-term care for both of you. Now, the older spouse could be cared for by the younger. A lot of times spouses do care for each other late in life. But if that older spouse is cared for by the younger spouse and then they pass away, who's going to be there to care for the younger spouse? You've got to think through what that plan is and make sure that you know that you've got the documents in place, the money set aside, or whatever that backup plan is going to be. Are you going to use the home equity? Are you going to have long-term care policies? But you need to know how that care is going to be provided in a very safe and, in a way that is good for that surviving spouse. So those are 5 things that you should think about if there is an age gap between you and your spouse as you're thinking through all of the stages of your retirement life together. And if you have any questions, as always, feel free to send me an email. I would be happy to answer them so that you are on your best path in your retirement.